Hello, this is Melvin Ramon. Let's talk about music. First thing I've got up for you, some vinyl. This is Bigger Beef Bonanza by Devil Dogs. It was actually a reissue that I think is an expanded one. I got to do a little more reading about this. The Devil Dogs were a garage punk band, a little bit of a kind of more of a rockabilly side to it, a little bit, real noisy and punk rock sounding, and not so much noisy, but just real raw and rockin' garage punk. You can see sort of a Rat Fink type of image going on the cover there. Just some raw rock and roll. The Crypt label put out a ton of great garage punk type stuff in the 90s. Bands like New Bomb Turks, The Oblivions, and so on. This, if you like that kind of stuff, you'll probably think the Devil Dogs are pretty great. That was a recent pickup. I haven't spun it. The whole thing is side one. I haven't spun the whole thing in a long time, but I saw it for a good price and decided I needed to revisit, and I'm glad I did. Next up here is a new issue. I think this has been around digitally at least for a while, of a live album called Detroit by L7, recorded in Detroit, Clutch Cargoes, in 1990. Reasonably sure I was not at that gig. I think the second time I saw them, I remember being in about 1993, and I don't remember what the first time I saw them was, but this is there's a lot of stage patter on here, and they do say that they are about to put out their album Smell the Magic, and there are a number of songs from that on here. And also they closed the set with Shit List, which wasn't on an album until Bricks Are Heavy. They said they had to leave it off of the Sub Pop album because there was a dirty word in it. It's interesting that they actually had that song around for so long, and it would be really interesting if Sub Pop did in fact have them not put the word shit in a song title. I sort of feel like that's probably not really true, but hey. Anyway, it's a good raw live album. Actually sounds pretty good. Like I said, a lot of good stage banter. A lot of stage banter kind of gets the personality of the band across, and it's a great performance. All seven were always great, and are. They're back together, great on stage, and it's a good thing. It's a good one. Up next here, I recently picked up a reissue of Anthrax, State of Euphoria. Anthrax, of course, are one of the big four of thrash. This album was from the late 80s, 88, I think. It's one of my favorites in high school. I actually saw them on this tour. It is generally not as well regarded in their discography. It's sort of seen as a lull between the album that came before it and the album that came after. I happen to actually really like a lot of these songs. Maybe it's me being nostalgic for the teenage metal years, but I think this is a pretty great thrash record. It's presented here on 3 sides, with the 4th side of some B-sides and demos and a live version, including the Antisocial recorded in French, and a Sex Pistols cover, and a Kiss cover, I think. And actually a Dick Dale cover. It's it's a great sounding reissue. I was really pleased with it. Kind of brings back the teenage thrashing years. Speaking of the metal from that era, this is Nocturnus AD. I was kind of thinking maybe I showed this before, but it didn't look like it. If I did, oh well. This is a death metal record. They were an older death metal band from the 90s, so it's an early thrashy type death metal, kind of science fiction lyrics, which is something I really like. Good thrashy death metal. I've been really enjoying it. Been in kind of a big death metal kick lately, so that's good to have. Next up here, Mad Professor, Dubbing with a Nazi. This is a reissue of a 70s dub record. It's summertime. I really love the spaced out, kind of laid back dubby stuff. It's kind of a go-to in the summer, so I usually pick some of those up. Also, one of the record stores near me is moving, so they had a sale. I stopped in there the other day, and for the car, I picked up a bunch of CD reissues of albums by Archers of Loaf. Been enjoying these in the car. They were a 90s indie rock band, compared often to, like Pavement and Guided by Voices, Superchunk, that kind of thing, kind of noisy. Earlier on, they rocked a little harder. Later on, they got a little more slow and songwritery. I actually think this one right here, Vivi, is my favorite by them, and one of my favorites in the genre. This actually, the original pressing of this I have on vinyl, and it had a different cover. It was actually a photograph of this image that somebody drew, which I thought was pretty neat. I like both versions of the cover, so it's kind of nice to have a different version. These all have bonus discs of B-sides and demos and some live cuts and that sort of thing. I've mainly been sticking to the album so far, but it's like I said, it's just something to jam out to in the car. Also, speaking of Guided by Voices, kind of in the same pile, I picked up a couple of solo releases by Robert Pollard, who is of course the main man in Guided by Voices, as well as Circus Devils, Boston Spaceships, and several other bands. He's puts out somewhere around 3 or 4 albums a year and has going back forever. If you're not familiar with him, kind of one of the premier indie rock artists. I generally really like what he does. If you listen, it does tend to get his albums get very samey. He kind of does his thing, and because he does it so often, only the true diehards need to worry about trying to get it all. But as far as I know, none of them are really bad at all. They range from a lot of pretty raw recordings with 2 and 3 minute songs to some of the later Guided by Voices albums from their original run. Had a more full indie rock production, actually in the studio, a little more professional. But it's all very, very enjoyable stuff. Those are ones I hadn't heard before. I kind of decided, I don't have quite enough to listen to. Not really. But hey, why don't I try catching up with all of the various Robert Pollard side projects? That's going to take me a little while, but those are a couple things to start with. Anyway, that was just a quick little batch of things that I got there. Have a great day. Take care of your own happiness, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you all for watching. Hey, one other thing before I go. I do want to say thanks again to Tales from the Crate, because once again he sent a shout out. So hey, thanks a lot, man. Love it. Love your channel. Talk to you guys later, man. Have a great day.